Hey everybody, welcome to a hot summer day here in LaGrange, Kentucky. It's, I don't know, mid 80s, close to 90. Humidity's not too bad, but when you're out here in a bee suit in the summertime, this is when it's not fun. So we are currently pulling supers. There's a few that still have some supers on them, and it's time to get those off. We are in a dearth here in Kentucky. There's not a lot of natural food sources left, so I'm trying to get the supers pulled, and immediately I'm putting ApiGuard on these hives, which you can see they don't particularly enjoy it. I've got this ApiGuard gel that I'm trying out for the first time here. I used to use the individual trays, but this is a lot cheaper if you have a lot of hives to treat, and it comes with this bucket. I forget exactly how large it is. It's your standard bucket that you can find on all the bee suppliers. I think I got this from Better Bee. I don't know. I forget exactly what size it is. You can look it up. They sell it on Man Lake, Data. And it comes with these trays, and it's single dose usage. So there's a syringe that you soak up this gel with, and you make sure it's mixed good. But it's got 10 to 50 milliliters, and the conversion, I think, is really close to 1-to-1 in terms of grams. So what I am doing, and everybody does a little bit different, which I'm sure I'll hear all about it in the comment section, but I am treating each one of these hives 25 grams per week for 4 weeks. Now the instructions say you can use up to 50 grams per hive, but if it's hot outside, this ApiGuard is just as effective with a lower dose. So that's why I'm using 25 grams. And you just put one of these trays on the hive, and I'll show you here in a little bit exactly how I do it. Pull up the 25 grams in the syringe, put it on there on top of the frames right above the brood nest, and you're good to go. There's lots of different forms of varroa control out there. You can choose whichever one is your favorite for your integrated pest management system. I prefer a combination of oxalic acid and ApiGuard. So my goal is to get the mite load as low as possible going into the winter time, when the bees kind of go into their hibernation mode. So I do that with a combination of ApiGuard and oxalic acid. So oxalic acid and ApiGuard do not penetrate the brood. You cannot use them when you have supers on, which is exactly why I'm pulling these supers off and putting the ApiGuard on immediately afterwards with these shims, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. So I'm gonna leave this on these hives for 4 weeks. I'm gonna, every week, I'm gonna come out here and put another 25 grams of ApiGuard on these hives for a total of 4 weeks, which really should knock those mite levels down. And then I will hit them with oxalic acid a few times going into Thanksgiving, November timeframe. The beekeeping calendar really starts in August, and so that's when these queens start making their winter bees, also known as fat bees. And so those bees are designed and built to be able to last several months throughout the entire winter time, unlike the 40 to 50-ish days that a typical worker bee will last. They will last much longer. So you have to get those mite loads and those mite counts down when your queen starts laying those fat bees, because you want healthy fat bees going into the winter. So I currently have 2 fume boards on these hives. That's why they're acting like they are. They're not happy about it. So I use that Honey Bandit, I believe is what it's called. Spray that on top of that. I posted a previous video if you want to see. I think I called it 2023 extraction, where I show you in detail what I do with these fume boards. My dad and I made them ourselves. They work really well. I'm pretty pleased with them. So if you want to see that, watch that previous video. What I've also done is done a couple of splits. I've split a couple colonies. This is a good time to do that. Again, I use single brood management in all of my apiaries, so every single one of these is going down to a single deep. So because of that, imagine how many bees could be in 2 supers that I'm forcing down into a single deep. That's a lot of bees. And so like this colony over here had 2 supers on it, and it was stuffed with bees, and I forced all of those bees down into that single deep. Well, there's not much room left, and they could get swarmy on you. And a matter of fact, this colony was already getting swarmy. There was a lot of emergency cups that they were starting to create. I didn't see any eggs in any of them, but I think they were pretty close because they were packed. So I split this colony. I got an angry bee chasing me, of course. It's always that one bee. If you know, you know. So I went ahead and split them down into here, and this was a previous colony that I split. I'm going to attempt to overwinter these nukes. I've never done that before, but here in Kentucky, I don't think it's that hard. It doesn't get that cold here, so I'm not going to be able to use my quilt boxes or Vivaldi board, but what I'm going to do is just put a small foam board on top of that. And I talked to our local EAS Master Certified Beekeeper, and he said that's all he does, and he has really good overwintering success. So these two colonies are currently queenless, and I'm thinking about hitting them with oxalic acid because they're going to have a broodless period. I left the two queens in the original hives. They are 2023 queens. You can do whatever you want. Some people like to create the simulation of a swarm and move the old queen to the new location and have the existing box raise a new queen. It really doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. In terms of a brood break, I'm treating for mites anyway with ApiGuard, so I think all is well. So anyway, we're going to see how these two colonies overwinter, and I'm hoping in 2024 I'll be selling some nukes for the first time. And so anyone local to my area here in central Kentucky, around the Louisville area, that would like to introduce some bees in the weeds, bees into your apiary, I'm cautiously optimistic that I will have some for sale. There's still plenty of drones. I've done quick inspections, and I mean real quick. I'm talking looking at 1 or 2 frames when I'm in these hives just to see signs of life. And I've seen eggs in all of them. I'm not looking for the queen, so I haven't found the queen, but I've seen signs of life in every single one of these, and I've seen drone cells. So these queens are still laying drones. This queen right here is my only 2022 queen, and that yellow dot, I happened to find her, and that yellow dot that I had on her is almost faded, but I can see a little bit of yellow paint left. And I ended up finding her because I moved 3 frames over to that nuke, and I thought the queen was still in here, but this colony started really roaring on me, and the nuke over there was really quiet. And so that's a little cheat code for you newer beekeepers, that if you're having trouble finding your queen because there's literally tens of thousands of bees stuffed in a single box, just listen, the bees will tell you. And so this colony over here was really quiet, pulled up 1 frame, boom, there she was. So I moved her right back over into this colony, put 5 new frames in here with the 5 existing frames and that original 2022 queen, and I'm sorry, yes, 2022 queen, and sealed them back up and put some ApiGuard on there. So every other queen in this colony is a 2023. So remember how I was telling everybody that there's a butterfly. There's so many butterflies around here because we have all this natural milkweed. It's so cool just to come out here and just watch. It's very therapeutic and relaxing. So yeah, remember I posted in that single brood management, the pros and cons video? Well, one of the cons is a lot of swarming, and every single one of my colonies swarmed this year with the exception of that one. So it is what it is. I caught a lot of them, and that's why I'm up to, 17 colonies now, I think. So that's, silver lining, I guess. If your bees swarm, you can always go capture them, and I've still gotten plenty of honey. Now, me personally, I'm only going to do 1 honey pull next year because it's just too much work, guys. It's a lot getting all the equipment out, setting everything up, putting these supers back on, going through everything again, pulling them off, extracting. It's just a lot of work, and I'm not sure the second pass, these midsummer honey pulls, I'm not sure the juice is worth the squeeze. This is just Josh's humble opinion. Your mileage may vary, and that's perfectly fine. You do what you want. But I'm getting so much honey off that spring harvest anyway, I don't really think I need any more, quite honestly. And I'm thinking about just leaving it to the bees. So that's kind of where I'm at. As far as alcohol washes, some people have asked me, what do you do alcohol washes? What are your mite counts before and after? I do not. So that is not the right thing to do. So let me go ahead and publicly state that for the record. You should do mite washes. I do not. Why do I not? Because I'm an extremely busy person in my life right now. I have 3 young kids, a full-time job, lots of extracurricular, you know, activities, hobbies, kayaking, other stuff that I enjoy doing. The beekeeping is just one hobby that I have. So therefore, you know, my wife works full time. She's a nurse. So I'm on daddy duty while she's gone. So it's just a very busy time in my life right now. And alcohol washes just drops down the priority list when I only have so many hours out here in the bee yard. So yes, you should do them. I do not do them. So because I do not do them, I treat every hive. I know that every colony has mites in it. I know that for a fact. Every colony has mites in it. So it's a matter of how many mites. So what's the downside of that? Well, that means I could be treating hives that don't need to be treated. And so what's the downside of that? Really, you know, a couple of things. Number one, I'm potentially wasting my money. I'm treating a colony that doesn't need it. Number two, and this is debatable, I've heard some people say like, oh, well, that could lead to the resistance of certain treatments. I actually completely disagree with that. And the reason why is if you think through this logically, I'll explain why that's not the case. Now, I am not a veterinarian. I'm not a scientist of mites or anything along those lines, but I'm an engineer and I like to think things through logically. So here's my point. Oxalic acid is an acid. To my knowledge, there is no resistance buildup to acids. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. So that leaves us to thymol, which is the active ingredient in ApiGuard. I am following the instructions. So I'm not leaving ApiGuard on a colony for 20 weeks straight, right? That's how you build up resistance. That's how varroa mites build up resistance, or anything else, is long-term exposure to the miticide, right? I'm following the instructions. I'm going to have all the ApiGuard off these hives after 4 weeks, and that's it. So it's not going to stay on anyone. So if a colony has low mite load, they're going to have low mite load after I treat, and that's it. There's not going to be long-term exposure to thymol where they can build up resistance. So that's my opinion and logic, and I'm sticking to it. So I'm sure I'll hear something in the comments from people that disagree, but that's what I do, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. And I've had good success with it. I mean, I'm going into my 4th winter, and I have successfully overwintered 100% of my colonies. Now, one colony this year in March starved because of my own fault, because I did not get out here and get food on that colony soon enough, but they still made it through the winter perfectly fine. So anyway, not trying to toot my own horn, just saying this is what works for me. Whatever works for you is perfectly acceptable also. You do you and I do me. You'll probably heard me say that a couple of times, but that's kind of the gist of beekeeping. I think there's too many people out there that try to paint the picture that things can only be done one way, and that's not the case. There's many, many, many ways to skin the cat in beekeeping. Lots of paths lead towards success. So this is just what works for me. And so this is why I'm sharing on my channel. If you find you want to do something similar, I'm just letting you know that this is successful for me. And I'm still going into my 4th winter, really enjoying this single brood management. I think the pros just greatly outweigh the cons. And again, so far, I'm really enjoying it. I may change one day, but not today. So anyway, I'll go ahead and show you specifically how I apply ApiGuard to these hives and take you through kind of what I do. It's real quick and easy. It's not hard at all. And the shims that my dad and I built, I'll show you those real quick. Again, super simple to make on your own. And we'll show you how we get the treatments on these hives. All right. So let's go ahead and take the fume board off this colony. So this colony had one of those hog half combs in it. The bees hardly touched it, unfortunately. It is what it is. I have to figure out what I'm gonna do with the few cassettes that are in here, because it's really meant to have all of them taken out at once, but it is what it is. So hive tool, here it is. So take this off. Looks like there's not a whole lot of bees in here. Then I'll take this over to the UTV real quick, be right back. Okay, sorry about that. So let's go ahead and give them a little bit of smoke. Take the queen excluder off because we don't need those anymore. Now, like I said earlier, what I've been doing, some of this propolis off. I'm curious if others have been having issues with ants this year. I normally don't have issues with ants, but this year's been kind of bad. So there's been a lot more propolis on these hives. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull out one frame here. Quick glance, make sure the queen's not on here. Usually she's not. Got this one angry bee here, of course. And I'm gonna look towards the middle here. So I'll push these frames out of the way. And all I'm looking for signs of life. I do not need to find the queen. I just need to find evidence of the queen. So there's some brood I can see. Yep. So I'm trying to look down in these cells. Looks like this is a frame of emerging brood, so I don't know if she's had a chance to backfill yet. I see larvae in the corners, but I don't see any eggs, and that's what I really try to look for. So I'm gonna try another frame. Carefully put that back together. And usually the bees are pretty agitated this time of year, but I mean, my bees have been pretty calm for the most part. Had a couple trying to get in my face, like I was saying earlier. That's kind of expected. Okay, and I see, yep, I see eggs on this frame. So the queen has been here within the past 3 days. Just double checking here. And I will say that's the one thing with, sometimes if you put the sun over your shoulder, there we go, yep, young larvae, eggs. You can see some royal jelly down in there. That is the thing with ApiGuard, is it can slow your queen down from laying, but quite honestly, she's gonna start to slow down anyway. Got a practice cup there with nothing in it. So she's gonna start to slow down anyway. So this is why this time of year, around July to August, is a really good time to treat with this ApiGuard. If you can avoid it, you really don't wanna use this in the spring, unless you do a mite wash and you've got just super high mite loads. You can use it in the spring, but it could cause your queen to stop laying during a period of time when you really want her taking off, and that population of that colony is really starting to explode. So what I do here is I just get this brace comb off the top of the frames and make some room for that tray. Of course, the bees always want to get all over top of it. There we go. Then you just take this little plasticky white tray, set it right over top of the brood nest, so right in the middle. Take your handy dandy syringe here, make sure that the gel is stirred well, and then measure out about 25 milliliters, which equates to about approximately 25 grams. This is not an exact science, folks. It's not that critical to get it perfect. And then squeeze it on top of that tray, and that's it. And the bees, I'll explain how this ends up working. So these are the shims my dad and I made. I think they're 2 inches by 1 inch, just made out of pine, painted the outside of them white. I drill a 1-inch hole in the front of every one of these in case, for whatever reason, I want to give bees another entrance or access to the hive. But during this time, when I'm treating, I do not. So I've got these little white plugs. So what I do is I end up putting these plugs in, and it plugs up the entrance and does not allow the bees to go in and out. Now, why do you not want to do that? Well, the way that thymol works is by the fumes proliferating throughout the hive, and the bees will identify this as a foreign substance, and they will take it out of the hive, out the front door. Well, you don't want to give them a super easy access right next to the chemical. You want them to carry that thymol all the way down through the frames around all those other bees that may have phoretic mites attached to them so that it can kill those mites. And the best way to do that is to seal up the hive other than the front entrance. So this entrance gets sealed. Entrance reducers, I keep those on all year round anyway. That's another discussion for another video. People disagree with that. I don't care. Works great for me. Especially now during a dearth, there's robbing that can happen. You can easily set off a robbing event by pulling this honey and bees everywhere and blah, blah, blah. So you put your entrance reducers down to really help your colony be able to defend itself. Now, I just realized I forgot to put this frame back in, so let me take this off. See, sometimes you get distracted chatting and you forget what you're doing. So I'm gonna push all these down a little bit and put this frame back in. I don't think they'd have been too happy with me. I'd have left them out. So. There you go. All right. That looks a lot better. Let's try this again. So, put your shim on. And the reason you have the shim is because if you don't, your inner cover would squash and smush this this gel, this ApiGuard gel. And you don't want that. Now, question I'll get is, well, won't the bees just comb up in here? Typically not this time of year. They're not in a comb building mood. This isn't spring. We're in a dearth. There's not a lot of natural nectar or sugar available. They're not going to be in a comb producing mood. So therefore, it's unlikely the month that I'm going to have this shim on from mid to late July to mid to late August that they're going to build any comb at all. If they do, you just scrape it off and harvest it for your wax melter. So that's really it, and then you put your inner cover on here. And so the bees will start to identify that as a foreign substance. They don't like it, and so they will carry it out the front door. And now over time, they may get more and more accustomed to it, and you could see less amount of sort of the hygienic type behavior where they're carrying it out of the hive. I was looking at hive 1 through 4 earlier today, and I saw them carrying this white substance out the front door. So it's pretty cool. You can see it, literally see it in action working. So they'll start to carry this out. And so yeah, again, what I also do is I put the IPM board in. I use all screen open bottoms in my apiary on all of my hives. During treatment, the thymol vapors are actually heavier than air, so they will settle to the bottom. And if you do not have that IPM board in, then the treatment is less effective. So yes, you will see some bearding. Yes, you will see bees congregating at the front entrance. If you read the ApiGuard instructions, that's actually perfectly normal and acceptable this time of year because it's hot outside. So there is going to be a little bit of bearding activity. I traditionally have no bearding on my hives because, again, single deep, screen bottom board, plenty of ventilation with the upper entrances, especially with the supers that I do. So, but yeah, I'm gonna leave this on here for a week. All these hives for a week, come back, reapply. Wait a week, come back, reapply. And that'll really knock those mite loads down. So that's it. I gotta finish this. It's hot, I'm busy. This is the least fun time of beekeeping, in my opinion, when it's sweltering hot, you gotta wear a full suit, and it's just you're a sweaty mess. But hey, this is beekeeping. If you wanna know what it looks like, this is what it looks like. So appreciate you guys watching this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and shoot them down in the comments. I do my best to reply to every single person that has a question or writes a comment, and I'm happy to answer anything. And if you do things a little bit differently, that's awesome too. Go ahead and put in the comments what you do for your treatments or how you use ApiGuard, because I think as a community we can all learn from each other. I really don't believe that there's just that one way, which drives me absolutely insane when beekeepers try to suggest that. So if you want me to get on a soapbox, that's also for another video, another time. But yeah, give it a thumbs up if you like this video. Hope you guys are subscribing. Really appreciate all the new subscribers that I've had jump on board. It's really cool just having you all with me and joining me. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.